Welcome to Whispers to a Bride, where we talk about the stuff no one else is talking about. We are going deep on the emotional aspects of getting married, the stress, drama, and turbulence that affects your own sense of identity and your closest relationships. We are talking about what it means to be a bride and how to navigate this sacred time with more grace and ease. I'm your host, Kara Gassabay. As a life coach and therapist, I'm going to be sharing super practical tips so that you can not only rise to the occasion of your wedding, but also your life. Hello, and welcome back. I'm Kara, and today we are talking about it could have been better, right? This is sort of a reflection on a recent bridal session call I had with a client who had her wedding about a month or two prior. And she was just left with these lingering feelings and thoughts that it could have been better. So she had, an amazing wedding. She even said herself, it was beautiful. So many things went right. So many things were perfect. No drama with friends or family. Everybody was able to be there, and they had planned lots of events for the whole sort of wedding weekend, and everything really went well. Except there were like a few glitches, right? Things that she noticed, like the band stopping a little early, one bar shutting down at the wrong time, just little, logistical things. Because she had been planning it, she noticed, but like the guests probably didn't notice. But it was bothering her, right? It's just lingering. And she really noticed herself going down a rabbit hole of just feeling really dissatisfied with her wedding because, as she said, when you look at the facts, it could have been better, right? If these sort of minor but still very real mistakes or miscommunications with the vendors about like timeline and stuff had been avoided, like the date could have been a little bit better, just in her mind. That just kept replaying over and over in her mind and kind of causing a lot of distress and frustration and anxiety and just not having that really peaceful feeling you want to have when you complete a big project, right? Not the feeling you want to have when you look back at your big day. You want to feel really proud and happy and a big sigh of relief that it's all done and that it's been well executed and you left it all on the floor and there was nothing else you could have given and it went better than you expected and all the planning you did worked out, right? We just want it to go really well, and we want to feel that it went really well. And all of that is valid and all of that is fair. And besides the important mental work of realizing that like there will always be something that could have been better in our wedding and in life, like for those of us with perfectionist tendencies or fantasies, as my colleague Carl Lowenthal talks about, perfectionism as a fantasy, which is such a great reframe. Besides that, I feel like if you are having this post-wedding, we call it the post-wedding blues. I'm talking here like just this itchiness, this agitation that like it just could have been better. And there's not this feeling of like satisfaction. If you're missing that, what I want you to do is ask yourself, what did I want my wedding to do? Right? Besides the obvious, we want everyone to have a great time and we want to showcase like our taste and our hostessing level, and we want to bring everyone together. We want to mark this big occasion, and we just want to have a great time and have great food and good music and all that stuff. Besides the obvious, what were you trying to do with your wedding? What did you hope that your wedding would do for you, right? There's often this like underlying unspoken contract or agenda that's baked in to this event that we just always aren't aware of, or we're not honest about, or we don't fully grasp until it's all over and we're looking back and we're like, oh yeah, I was actually hoping that this would have happened. And so we did a little deep dive in this direction with this client, and what we really came to was that it was a lot having this wedding in this city that they did was really about not only the culmination of a really long dating history and courtship, but like there was a little bit of looking for validation and approval and excitement from some friends and family about where this couple had chosen to start their life in the city that they lived. And maybe there were some like question marks with friends and family about like, why do you live there? And why are you starting your life? Or why did you follow your partner there or whatever? And so what this bride realized that maybe she wasn't letting herself fully own was that she wanted her wedding to be more than just perfect and pretty. She wanted it to be this moment of validation, right? She wanted to execute an event that could be so perfect that it could just knock people's socks off in a way that would then have them validating not only her wedding, but in so doing, validating her life choice in a different way. Do you see how like it's all kind of gets intertwined? We want people to talk about our wedding and to be so proud of it and be blown away by it and be impressed by it because we're looking for that feeling of approval and having impressed someone and having proven something to them, have them, their excitement, we're using it to mean something about our life choices, not only for the wedding day, but like in a bigger way than that, whether it's our partner or the city that we've chosen or the move that we've made or the lifestyle that we are cultivating. Whatever it is, I think it can often really be baked into people's reaction to the wedding day itself. So we feel like if we get enough compliments on the wedding, we'll just like use those as validating these bigger issues. And I think that it can just kind of get mixed together and get kind of lost. And so at some point it can become like, are there really ever enough compliments about your wedding that are going to do that thing that really can't be done by other people, right? What are we exporting to other people that really is just work that we need to do for ourselves, right? What kind of closure are we looking for from other people when really all we need to do is reach out and close the door ourselves, right? What validation and approval do we need to just give ourselves and not wait around for a certain person to say it in a certain way that then we can just rest easy? I think so many of us, especially with our closest friends and family, whose opinion we do care about and we do cherish, we can just wait around for them to say the thing. And sometimes it just doesn't happen, or we don't hear it in the same way, or they feel like they've said it, or they thought it was obvious, or, right? That's just that very general, very common miscommunication, right? Where we just miss each other and we're sitting around with this need for something to be said and they're thinking like, of course, it's like obvious. I didn't even say it, or I thought I said it because I think it so deeply that I assume that I've said it, but really they never did say it. Whatever it is, I think that this is just such a great reminder that you're allowed to decide for yourself that your wedding was good enough and that it did what it was meant to do, despite not getting the feedback maybe in the way that you wanted to get it, and despite it not going exactly to the detail according to plan, right? Taking those two things out, still letting your wedding day be what it was and not diminishing it and picking it apart and keep on like overanalyzing it and working it over in your mind, letting it steal your peace and your relaxation, not doing what I said in whichever episode is called The Museum, where you just sort of put it behind glass, you walk away from it for a minute. I think I tell all my brides in that post-wedding phase, there is a time and a place to reflect on it, but it's often after you have given it some space and some grace, right? That is a project that you have poured so much into. You are not going to be the best one to judge it, right? You know too much. You know how the sausage is made. It's often like one of those things like if you ever make a meal that takes a lot of time and effort, sometimes you just don't even want to eat it, right? Like, or when you do, it's just very lackluster because you know what went into it. And then what came out, it was like, that doesn't really all add up. It's not as satisfying. Whereas a fresh set of taste buds, they're like completely wowed by it. So I think that is what goes on in this dynamic of feeling like it could have been better. One of her big feelings was that like it could have gone on just a little bit longer and maybe like with just like a few more minutes on the dance floor, one more cocktail, and like this feeling that like it was over too soon. And I think that that is And she was feeling like it was a timeline gone awry, but I think that is a feeling that is so common. The day just goes by. It's very fleeting. It's super ephemeral. It like disappears. It like slips through our fingers. And that doesn't make it any less easy when you're dealing with that feeling of having it like just a little bit, it slipped by too quickly and you couldn't hold on. But just normalizing that and knowing that and letting that feeling of like wanting more be like a cool thing instead of a failure. Like, oh, it was over just a bit too quickly. Let your guests feel like they wanted to stay longer. Let yourself feel like you wish you could have held on more. Like that's a good feeling, right? That's like quitting while you're ahead, or like leaving when you're at your peak, right? Like the only thing worse than that was like, oh God, that wedding dragged on and I wish it would have been over an hour before. You don't want your guests feeling that, right? So lean into the feeling of like, it's good maybe that like it could have gone on more and there's more to the story. There's more to the fun. The celebration like could never be big enough to encapsulate like our love story. Like that's just part of the narrative writing that I think happens over time with your wedding. But like I said, when you're just like a month out, it's too close. You cannot analyze it. You cannot savor it. It's not, you don't have enough distance for it to have the sweetness develop yet, right? Like it needs to be put on the shelf to be revisited when you have a different perspective on it, when you're not so close to those raw ingredients that were in that recipe. Like you're too close, you know too much, you're in the weeds. You got to give yourself a little distance, right? Walk a few paces back from the painting and then turn around and look at it. And it's just a whole different thing. It's a very different experience. So if you are feeling these sort of, it could have been better. My wedding could have been better. And I'm frustrated and I'm annoyed. And I'm actually making myself crazy over it. Book a session. Let's really give your wedding the sort of closure that it deserves and it needs. And doing that will just be processing some of the feelings that you have about it that you can't quite let come up in a way that makes sense. That's what happens when you're in a session with me, is that like, it's just a very different landscape than when you're just by yourself Googling how you could have been different or what did you actually say to that vendor and what should, like, you'll never get that closure and that peace on your own that way. But you can get it when you are in a dynamic and in a space where you can really explore what you're feeling, what you hoped to feel, what you wanted, what you didn't get. And we can really go deeper and deeper and deeper and then get to the sort of core issue and then work from there how to strategize on scratching that itch. So if that at all makes sense to you and speaks to you, please do not hesitate. Reach out. I am taking new clients. KaraMaureen.com. Book your bridal session today, whether your wedding is ahead of you or behind you. It deserves, and you deserve, this sort of emotional wrapping it up and tending. And then, otherwise, find me on TikTok, find me on Instagram, Kara the Bridal Coach. And until next time, I am wishing you nothing but bridal